Hi, welcome to IntelleXual University. I'm your host, David S. Dawson, and I am very pleased that you've joined us today for the cast and crew screening and Q&A for the award-winning sci-fi short film, You Are Me, written and directed by Clark M. Smith and produced under his banner Time Axis Entertainment and in association with Sierra Cinematics and our very own IntelleXual Entertainment. Throughout tonight's live stream on Facebook and YouTube, provided you are viewing through our official intellectual entertainment pages on either platform, you can join into tonight's conversation by submitting your questions directly into the comments section of the video, and we will try to get to everyone's questions within the hour or so that we will be chatting. And yes, we will be able to take your questions while we are watching the movie together. Now, let's kick things off by bringing in the man behind the film, writer and director Clark M. Smith.
Hey, David. It's great to be here. And usually I'm on the other side of these things.
I have to thank you, Clark. You've been like our number one audience member all through the run of IntelleXual Universities. And much appreciated all the questions you've posed and all the support you've given us on our films. I'm very happy to turn the attention now on your film, which IntelleXual helped make. But this is very much your baby. Tell us a little bit about You Are Me. What's the story about?
Well, You Are Me is a science fiction short about a scientist who has a terminal illness and he has days to live, perhaps. He decides to imprint his soul onto the clone of himself, unbeknownst to his wife, and in the hope that she won't find out. But, you know, when you play God, there can be dire consequences.
Never play God. It never turns out well. What was the motivation for you in creating this film? How did the story come to you?
Well, this was one of those scripts that I wrote and fell in love with, and I kind of decided this has to be the next one I do. I just kind of get into this thing where nothing else can happen. This has to be the next one. So it was just really hit me hard. It didn't even change that much from the first couple drafts of writing it. And it also kind of hit home a little bit, a little personal level, some losses in my family. But, it just came together. I just had to do it. Wasn't going to be able to rest till it was done. And there might have been, a Twilight Zone or two, I'll admit, or maybe an amazing story that had an influence. I don't know any specific one, but I have a feeling that it was something maybe in the 80s version. And then I brought in Randy, who I had worked with before. And I kind of wrote it with him in mind, actually, and I thought he'd be perfect for it. So we set off to begin the process of finding people to help me make it.
Well, speaking of Randy, why don't we bring Randy on? We can talk a little bit about how you two came to work on this together. Randy Davison, welcome to IntelleXual University.
Good to see you guys. What's up, Clark?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, David.
So, Randy, do you remember how Clark approached you with this project?
Yeah. It was a couple years before we actually did it, and he brought the script to me, and I read it. I loved it. Like him, I grew up with the Twilight Zone, and I love the story and I love the twist. For those who haven't seen it yet, at the end, I love sci-fi, just like Clark, and I've always wanted to play. I've seen movies, where people play either a twin brother or a clone. So I just thought that would have been a cool challenge to play two versions of myself. So that was exciting. I think when I first read it, I thought of all movies, I know it's an odd, underrated movie, but Multiplicity with Michael Keaton, which I love.
Multiplicity is brilliant.
It is. And so I'm like, oh God, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah, actors are always struggling to land that one role. This is one of those opportunities where you landed two.
Twice. I only got one IMDb credit though, darn it.
Jordan Jacobo, our good buddy here in town, asks which Twilight Zone episode will your next film be based on. Snarky as ever, Jordan.
Well, I try not to get too M. Night Shyamalan-ish.
What is it about Randy that
wait a minute. Once you have
casting him, Clark?
Tell him about the 2.0 story you have.
Yeah, I wrote a kind of a pseudo sequel set in the same universe as You Are Me. It's called Randy 2.0, but we'll talk about that a different time. So you asked me how I got Randy involved in the film. Well, when it came time for me to make this film called Stover Hill in 2014, I brought him on board to be in that, and that was a great experience. He's got a great work ethic. He's a Of course, he's a great actor, and everyone knows what a nice guy he is. But I think he's done a lot of comedy, perhaps maybe more than dramatic roles. So, but I knew he could nail this and handle the emotional part.
Now, at the core of this film is a relationship between two people that I find questionable in its honesty. But it can only be a successful film if Randy's scene partner is genuine, effective, and a lovely human being. So I would like to bring in Randy's co-star, Annie Willett Thomas. Hello, Annie.
Hey, Annie.
Hi, Annie.
Hello. Hi.
What about Annie drew you to Annie for this role? And was there an audition process, or did you just know these are the people you wanted to work with?
Well, I didn't audition anyone for the wife role. Actually, I didn't know Annie at first. I looked at a couple actresses. Many of them were, had moved to LA and weren't able to commit to coming down here at this point. So at some point, I caught wind of Annie doing some of her grommets movies, and the one that comes to mind the most was the one where she murdered a newscaster, which was some fantastic acting, and she was completely lost in the role. She completely looks different. I don't even see her in the movie, but that's her. And then so I saw her in a couple of other ones, and I really wanted her to be in it. So then I thought, well, she's not going to want to be in my little movie. She's a grommet girl and does some amazing work.
And for those people who are watching her, not San Diego-based filmmakers, the grommets, or the amalgamated grommets, are one of the most successful short film teams here in town. And Annie's been in a few of their brilliant films. Annie, what did you think of You Are Me when you got a hold of the script?
I loved the twist because it got me. And so, something's going on, but until somebody, can get you on the twist, because sometimes they're predictable, right? So this time it wasn't. And I went, oh my God, I have to do this. And obviously I do death well as Clark introduced me. So not that I'm actually not giving the twist away. Maybe giving my character away. But it was that. It was there was, character development there for in the relationship. And then all of a sudden you read the end and you have to track back to page 1 and go, wait a second, how did I miss this? And so it was the script. It was easy. Nice. I mean, Randy helped. I do like him.
I was excited when I found out Annie was going to be in it.
So sweet.
I've always wanted to act with you, so this was.
Well, you never know. You never know what.
So many years, and we've never, worked together.
We were in NBL together, but we didn't have scenes together.
No, exactly.
That's one of those interesting things, Randy. Like, people don't always realize just because you're in a movie together doesn't mean you actually ever even saw each other on set, right?
No.
Clark, you want to start bringing in some of the crew?
Yeah, I just wanted to say too, though, that you really never know what kind of chemistry your actors are going to have before you get to the set. I mean, we didn't really rehearse it hardly at all, maybe a little bit, but you never know. And I was so pleased with their chemistry. I mean, the scene in the restaurant, which was one of my favorites, feels so organic and like they've been married a long time, and I think you can really feel their love. So. Great chemistry, great casting in this movie. I might say so myself.
Well, you're always happy when the director's happy.
Yeah.
Jordan wants to know if that's Annie's miniature robot clone.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Are you wearing green on purpose?
I did. I totally did.
Oh, yes. And we totally intentionally are using green in the highlights on today's episode, and we'll get into that when we start talking about the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Green brandies.
Am I a clone or am I the real one? What color am I wearing?
Well, you're blue, so yeah.
I'm really by the end of this podcast.
So we got Mike Peterson coming in now, our amazing DP.
Mike Peterson, welcome.
How's it going?
Good. I have one question I want to ask Mike.
What's up?
Did you have COVID?
We don't know.
Ugh.
I had it too early to get tested during all of it. When I got sick, it was still like you had to be traveling outside the country within 14 days. At this point, we don't know.
Okay. Sorry, I know that's off topic.
No, it's good.
I was worried about you.
It was by far the worst sickness I've ever had in my entire life.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Glad
So
you're back.
Mike Peterson was the cinematographer on You Are Me. Do you guys want to talk real quick about your collaboration, Clark and Mike?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll go first. So I was working with a DP for a couple of years when I first moved to San Diego by the name of Chris Patterson, and we did a couple of films together. He ended up moving, or mostly living in Alaska, working on the show Deadliest Catch, lobster and crab show on the boats and all that. So he's always over there. Got a couple of kids now, and he kind of turned his back on short filmmaking, probably for good, because he's working full time, got a nice career going. So I started looking around for other DPs. Talked to a lot of people, a lot of recommendations, and talked a little bit to a lot of people, and then somehow ended up getting wind of David Dawson and his films and his award-winning films, and that led to Mike Peterson, and I know that he had shot DP a couple of films of theirs. I forget what it's called. Forever My Love. I know that was one of them that they did, and that was a very beautifully shot movie. I forget which one of you was the official DP.
That was Michael Shane
Yeah,
Bolt.
that was Michael Shane.
Okay.
But yeah, we worked together.
So why don't we bring him in?
That guy.
Hi, Michael.
Wait, that's wrong. That way, this way. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So Michael and Mike Peterson and Teresa, my sister, kind of make up the kind of core camera department of Intellectual Entertainment, and I gave them on loan to Clark.
Yeah, and I was really glad that he brought in Mushy and Teresa. Of course, I didn't realize at first that we were going to be able to have the privilege of having 3 cameras on some of these shoots, and so having them come on board was really
It
wonderful.
was interesting because Clark had the idea of doing most of this movie as a one shot, and I'm all for it for certain reasons, but we've gotten really good as a team of using multicam. So we'll have 2-3 cameras to do certain shots, and it ends up getting takes a little longer to set up initially, but you go through scenes quicker. You can make editing and continuity go away for the most part.
It's easier on the actors.
Easier on the actors, the crew, all that kinds of stuff.
But you need a bigger.
What was that?
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to try to make it like a 1917 kind of a big one, but just a couple here and there, maybe 7 of them, I guess, at the most. And we did do a few of them. Most of mine.
We worked all pretty good as a team. It was good.
Yeah.
So who else we got on there, Clark? Who else are we bringing in?
Yeah, we have Annalise, one of the co-producers of the film, coming in. Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
She was one of the co-producers. She also did a lot of stuff behind the scenes, a lot of stuff beforehand, all the SAG work and whatnot. And she also helped quite a bit on the production designer side, helping Rachel do her work.
Yeah, we brought Rachel in, who did the production design.
Yeah, Rachel and her did a fantastic job on the lab set primarily. We spent a whole day doing that. So take it away, Rachel.
So much pressure. No, that was really fun. I was kind of brought on later, so most of what I touched was the garage scene, and Annalise and I, we kind of threw that together pretty fast, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We spent like an afternoon working on that.
Yeah, it was super fun, and then camera crew came in and helped me light it, so we got like a really, really fun blue and yellow glow, which I think kind of took that to the next level. So really excited about that. And then the rest of it was watching, making sure it is honestly it's kind of helping out with continuity a bit in terms of making sure the meals were reset at the beginning of the scenes and stuff.
Yeah, and I was really worried about the lab set looking cheesy or not very good, very low budget. They did such a great job. We had the monitors going, and once they got it lit, and the whole set just really came to life. I was really, really relieved. That was the number one fear of this movie, is that the lab set isn't going to look like it's capable of creating a clone and all the high-tech stuff he's trying to do in there.
That was fun. Just like grabbed random hardware store pieces and stuff I had laying around my house and found a bunch of wire casings and just kind of threw them all over the set until it looked cool. It was super fun. Some of my favorite design projects I've done.
Good. Me too.
So I'm just going to bring this up because Jordan, I know he wants to see it on screen. Jordan says this looks like a poorly conceived Brady Bunch.
Jordan.
Well, why don't we get into the movie? We'll watch the movie together, and we can comment on the film as it goes along. You guys can provide insights to the people who are watching with us. Again, if you're in the Facebook or the YouTube stream, drop those comments, and we can bring those up while we're watching the movie. If you have questions, ask them as we're going live. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right, let's pull this thing up. Look, we're all little teeny tiny people now. Time Axis, Clark, you want to explain that name?
Well, real quick, used to be Time Axis, as in ACCESS, and that evolved into Time Axis. That's a whole different story there. But the idea is that time is on an axis, and the center axis is the present, and on either side is the future and the past. Some people think that there's no such thing as a future and a past, and only the present, while other people think that there is no such thing as the present because it's such a small increment of time that it doesn't exist, and it's not measurable, and only the future and the past exist. So.
I just want to call out the makeup in this scene in particular. I thought it was so good.
I look sick, not in a cool young person way.
Yeah, our makeup designer, Anahe, came in the last minute replacement for someone else. I forget who it was who had to cancel last minute. She did a great job.
Now, I didn't mention, I was the color corrector on this film. Or not enough mention about it. But this room was a nightmare.
Oh, the scene drives me crazy because of the ADR too.
Yeah, I also did the ADR and sound design. But this room, super small. The building itself has like a weird hum. So all of that audio had a hum in it. So it had to be replaced. Crazy, crazy scene.
Yeah, bad location as it turned out for audio and picture.
And I love this scene. This is probably, cinematically speaking, my favorite scene, how it turned out, how it looks.
I took the weekend before shooting with Teresa, Dave, and Mike to really practice like a dining set. I set up a China ball. This is all shot during day. We had to black out all the windows, everything all around us. Yeah, it was a lot of practice that went into making this look good.
Hey, Annie's wearing green tonight, and I'm wearing blue.
There you go.
What are the chances?
You're in character.
I also added a lot of depth to the lighting in the post production to emphasize the candle light and whatnot.
Yeah, that's one of the best coloring jobs on the whole movie.
You have my actual headshots on the screen.
So we spent a full day shooting in this garage in the hottest part of August. And dying for a day, but it came out well.
Very hot. And here's Randy wearing a sweater.
Oh, it's the hottest garage in the street.
That the hottest scene was in the bedroom when you were.
Yeah, that was really hot.
That was
We had
hot.
fans going.
Oh yeah, that's
I'd have to say the garage was a close second.
It was truly horrible in there. So here's Kevin, our body double stand-in. Anytime there's a hand with Randy in the shot, it's Kevin's hand, and vice versa. And conversely, here it is with Kevin on the table in these shots.
We shoot this in June.
Didn't we,
It was the last week of June and then the second week of August.
Yeah.
didn't we almost kill Randy by wrapping him in plastic wrap?
Killing him drenched.
Oh, that,
No, we don't
yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah, we almost made
Jordan
it.
wants to know what the story was with the cardboard robot.
Oh, Matt Morgan had made that robot for another Gromit's film called Traveling Through Life. And I asked him if I could use it for a little set dressing, and he said sure.
Okay, so we're back in the doctor's office. So I want to point out here. So for color correction, it's a bright yellow room. It's a very small room too. So it's a bright yellow room with white cabinets, white lab coat, and light colored pants. And everything that's light reflected yellow. So everything looked very, very yellow. So I had to work on isolating everything in this shot to remove yellow out of the whites. There was a lot of tracking. Frame to frame, making sure everything was clean. It took a long time to get this room looking really good in post production. Also, all that humming we had, we completely replaced all the audio in the doctor's office in post production.
Yeah, didn't you say that you worked on post production coloring in this movie more than any other movie in your whole life?
I spent 350 hours color correcting
Wow.
this movie.
You logged it.
Oh my God.
So
I would've just
Oh, and
made
it wasn't just color correcting things too. Like this shot here, that depth of field is artificially done to make the people in the background blurry. And so I rotoscoped Randy all throughout the scene so that he's cut out from the background so that we could blur it out.
Rachel, there you are.
I don't realize how much I was in this shot.
You forgot?
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, you and Kevin.
Another question from Jordan. Just a nod to the grommets, or was the robot intended to be a Randy prototype?
It was a rough prototype.
Oh, maybe a little of both. I actually worked as a PA on that Gromit film. It was actually scripted by Jason Lethert before I made any of my first films here.
So I want to point out in this scene too, there's a lot of color stuff. So we're going to get into the green and blue, right? So Clark, tell us what green and blue means in this movie.
And I might be slightly alarmed.
Well, let's give a shout out to Jennifer Pelling, our costume designer. She did an amazing job. She came up with the whole idea of green means you're a clone and blue means you're still human. So that goes along with the green lines on the forehead and yeah, talking about the colors definitely gives away the secret.
Everything's fine.
Are you sure?
So blue was living and green was artificial.
I just wanted you to know.
Yeah, and then Randy's color changes to green as well after he becomes the clone.
Yeah, so Randy's struggling with the fact that he's going to go artificial in this scene, right?
Yeah.
So something else I did color correction wise in this is Annie's got green highlights on her outfit, but I color corrected the entire room around him to have a green tint.
Yes.
Because he's surrounded in this idea of becoming a robot.
Kind of a matrix green.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's a great scene. One of my favorite scenes. I love their chemistry. Here we are now into the second lab scene.
Doing these split screens were fun.
That was fun.
We shot a whole series, and then at some point, my camera got shifted during a lunch break, and we had to shoot a lot of it over again.
Yeah, it was a fun lunch.
So I was so pissed.
Yeah, that added some stress.
Yeah. Anyone ever fess up?
Well, luckily, the footage from the other angles was quite usable, so it wasn't a complete wash at all.
Yep.
It was probably that damn clone that did it. That was fun to record. I had to record them separately. Kevin, thank you, Kevin, wherever he's at, for being the stand-in and giving me some of the
So you did it, Randy?
Yeah, Kevin Burke was a humongous help. I worked with him on Stover Hill, with Randy also a couple of years back, and he was just a PA back then. So coming up in a second is my actual favorite shot of this whole movie. It's when Randy turns around and tearfully has to say goodbye away from her. And this shot was pretty much designed as to be a oneer. I was going over and following him along. But right here when he turns around, I just love his acting. I love the way Mike shot it. And we actually crossed the axis right there briefly, but it doesn't matter. It works.
Annie, I just want to point out you are beautiful on camera. Every shot of you in this movie is just gorgeous.
Yeah, very, very photogenic.
And Randy, you look sick. You just don't look well.
You look good.
If you get that checked out, I'd get it looked at if I were you.
I look like Ricky Gervais.
You do.
David Brent crying.
More depth of field work with David here on this shot.
Yeah, more rotoscoping and stuff on this shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause that was a GoPro, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Stuck that on the hood. Yeah, makeup looks great. She did such a good job. I had invited Reber, our composer, to do this today. He wasn't able to make it, but he's done all the films I've made, since I moved to San Diego. He's a brilliant composer.
These were fun to shoot. These were pretty much just go to the montage stuff, just kind of fun, make it up when we went through the park. And
That's a cool shot.
So hot, so hot.
Well, I like the contrast because he's in so much darkness in that shot, and then we go to these bright daylight outdoor shots.
That was my arm, by the way, opening the door, my cameo. This here is slow motion. It's all done in post. We didn't shoot any kind of slow motion footage.
I have to say, Clark, I like that this sequence is extended out and that it's just instrumental. It's not any dialogue. It tells a lot of Randy's emotional journey.
Yeah.
From upstairs to downstairs.
Was his part when he was walking down the stairs? Is that in every version? Yeah.
Yep.
It is?
Yeah. There's another version of the scene where the flashbacks themselves are very short and quick.
Okay.
Shots. That was the 15-minute festival cut. Actually, Rich Varville had cut that together for me. I was unable to do it, bring myself to do it, but he made a nice, concise 15-minute version.
Okay.
Tight, faster paced. This one here is about 21 minutes.
So for the most part, the split screens here weren't too bad, but there is one moment here where Randy starts crossing his hand in front of the duplicate in that wide shot.
Oh, really?
And the rotoscope his individual fingers.
Yeah, you can see the moment that he rotoscoped. I know what you're talking about. His fingers go right into Randy's arm.
Good morning back.
Yeah, I never noticed.
How are you feeling, Grayson?
Good, I did my job then.
I think it's this shot.
Wow.
Came close right there.
There was a continuity issue too with the little knobs on his head because they kept coming off.
Oh god, that was the worst. Because I was sweaty. It was so hot.
And I don't know if you noticed, but when he hands him the thing, the little button thing later, it's the wrong hand handing him in the close-up.
I never noticed that.
You'll never not notice it now.
If you notice, I don't know if you noticed my body posture, like the sick version of me is very kind of broken down and hunched over. The clone is very rigid and new and fresh.
Thanks, Jen.
Oh, tell him what that is, Clark.
That's a screen-used prop from The Thing, 1982, John Carpenter.
Yeah, that was awesome. Kurt Russell probably touched that.
That wasn't in any of the versions, so I wanted to bring that back now.
It killed it. Kurt Russell probably killed that.
So the whole storyline here is he's dying, right? And he creates a clone of himself to put himself into. But you came up with a set of rules for the clone, Clark. Can you explain what those rules are?
I did? Oh, yeah, that thing.
Can't swap spit, apparently, is the rule.
I came up with a set of rules.
No bodily fluids.
I had to have some kind of reason that the clones were gonna zap each other out. So I had it so where they cannot swap their saliva or any other bodily fluids, or it'll short out the whole system in the electronic brain. I mean, he never dreamed there'd be another creation just like what he made. Little did he know that there was.
Yeah, so no interactions with other clones.
And when she comes home from work and they almost kiss, that would have been the moment where the movie would end. I mean, they would have shocked each other right there and died, but I kind of dragged it out a little bit and kept it going, and wanted to make sure that was like an almost moment that wasn't to be.
Randy, how did you approach playing the clone?
That's fine.
So with the clone, I played him very robotic to start until I got to what I'm about to do here, where I give the emotions and the thoughts and the memories. And when those come into me, I'm almost like a little boy. Like I'm relearning everything again. Like when I taste wine, I taste cheese. Like I've had it before, but it's like, oh, I forgot how good that is. So it's everything from almost like a child's point of view. As we get toward the end of the film, then I begin to get more human. I just played it as that it takes a while for me to digest everything that's been put into me, if that makes sense.
And the brilliancy behind that too is that we completely shot out of order, so you didn't know you had to keep track of what level you were at, what stage of the clone.
I did, yeah.
Same thing. Sick.
So I'm very robotic right now. I kind of had robotic movement.
And it wasn't really written that way. Honestly, they were going to kind of mirror each other more or less and be really the same. It was Randy's idea and his take to make them vastly different.
I kind of discussed it with you, and because it was kind of my idea, and I asked if you liked that, because the clone is mostly organic. I mean, it's mostly clone with an electronic brain. So the brain is robotic. That's the only part of the body that's not human, I guess, or human flesh.
And you really don't get the personality anyway till it gets downloaded into your brain and your personality and all that.
Tell them the cool story about this, Clark.
Oh, well, some people may thought this was a little weird, but those are my mom's actual cremation ashes, except for one shot. And then I decided to use her, put her in one more movie. She was in a lot of my college movies and a huge supporter in my life. And I told this story about the ashes to William Wall, and he was nuts about it. He thought it was the coolest thing. He loved it. He said, "Don't let anyone let you take that scene out of the movie."
Hold up, that was your mom?
That was.
For real?
Yes.
For real.
You told me that the whole time.
Yeah, we didn't tell you.
That's her. She's cremated in Lake Dixon.
These guys don't tell me everything. Sometimes they're just like, don't tell him. It'll be better.
You may have been wigged out like you are with spiders and stuff.
So good to see you.
Well, I know we regularly try to keep in pieces of my dad and my mom in our movies too, so I get it.
Anymore.
So this is the first day and the third scene we shot in broad daylight, all blacked out.
Excellent.
And I really love this scene. I love Mike's camera work where he's pulling in and out of the scene, and just very mysterious and kind of dark. I really love it. Love the acting as well. Love Randy's line coming up.
No more big lab project in the basement.
Here's a weird little detail. So they clink the glasses together, but they sound like tick, tick. So I added in clinks and post.
There's me tasting cheese for the first time again.
Me though,
And wine.
And wine, yeah.
See, people laugh at Randy's line about being dead, but the real joke is Annie's line. So when you watch the movie again, you realize that she's the one who is funny.
I think I'll join you.
And it's kind of spoon-fed to the audience right before your eyes that she is in fact dead.
Yeah. What was it? She says I'm feeling really dead, and I go feeling kind of dead myself.
Yeah.
It was great. Great writing.
This was another one of those shots that was really hard to color correct.
My cough just went away.
It was unfortunate that we had to shoot this here instead of the actual house where the rest of the film was shot at Jill's house. This is my bedroom. It wasn't the greatest location.
And there it is. You can't touch. And they touch and swap spit, and that's it. Game over.
Power down.
Mm-hmm.
So Randy, was that fun to lock lips with her and wiggle all around like a weirdo?
That was really fun to get shocked by Annie. That was the best part.
So not very many people have seen this scene, and especially not this part cut into the movie. As we come up past Rachel's painting of Loki, I wanted to get some opinions on this scene. It's been left out pretty much all the versions. I haven't found too many people that actually like it, especially David. I don't think he cared much for it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this scene, which got deleted out of most of the public performances.
Oh, that's right.
Wasn't it at the end of the credits?
Yeah, we tried it kind of with a Marvel end of credits kind of idea, and I just wanted to put it here. Reaper gave me some great music to work with. I fine-tuned it a lot, worked on it a lot. Now that I finally got it to a way I kind of wanted it to be, I wanted to put it in here. Of course, you really can't. None of you can hear it.
I didn't have anything on it. That was blank. With the back of a tombstone.
Yeah, that's the back of a tombstone, and we added our own words.
Look at the dates.
That is the release date of 2112 by Rush.
Oh, nice. So we're almost 100 years in the future.
Yeah, even though your cell phone earlier looks like it's from this time.
We don't have flying cars yet. It's probably going to be that way.
I love your moment right here with the quivering lips and the crying almost. I think it's a really well acted scene. It's just a little odd, I guess, having a spiritual scene like this in a science fiction drama.
Well, I think it's also a violation of what the story was, personally.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
So maybe, yeah, look at it again with this music score and see what you...
I have.
I don't think that scene should be there. I think it should end with them in the bed when they go kaput.
It has a more Twilight Zone vibe if it ends in the bed, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a darker vibe.
Yeah, which feels like more of what the rest of the movie is kind of like.
Yeah, because it's a tragic story of two people who actually don't communicate with one another. And that lack of communication is what results in them ultimately not being able to spend their time together for eternity. Because theoretically, they could have lived in eternity as two robots. They never would have been able to get it on, but they would have been able to stay connected, right? But because neither one told the other what was going on with them, they end up annihilating one another.
There's a lot. I thought it was
a tragic story there that these two people couldn't be open enough with one another, with the people they love. They couldn't be open enough with them to tell them the truth of what was going on with them and what they were planning on doing. And it ends up completely destroying their lives and ruining their chance at eternity together. So for me, that post afterlife ending is tonally incorrect to the story you were telling.
Yeah, and you were the first person that kind of got me thinking that they're being selfish rather than selfless and trying to keep this dark secret from each other. And
That's true. The restaurant scene, I try to tell her, and I pull back, and I don't. And there are little nuggets you dropped in the script that I thought were great. When I'm at the doctor, and Larry says, your wife was exposed to the same radiation in the mines of Imam, which was Miami backwards. You said, it's just kind of cool. And I said, no, she's already been tested and she's fine, but she wasn't. And then I make the comment like, falling in love with you in that robotics lab was the happiest day of my life. So it drops nuggets that she did the same thing.
Yeah, a lot of nuggets for sure.
That's great.
Yeah, there's definitely breadcrumbs all along the way that kind of tells you what she did.
Right.
And that he's on the same path, but he can't talk to her. And to
Did
me,
did you see the comment? I just said it's like a Phoenix water song.
That one.
You guys know the reference?
I get it.
Yeah.
The Pina Colada song is this beautiful song that everybody loves to sing and be happy with, and it's all about two people trying to cheat on one another who then accidentally wind up together. But no, Clark, I think the brilliance of this movie is that it's about the relationship you have with your loved one and how important honesty is, and there's no honesty in this movie between these two people. Even though they obviously share a tremendous amount of love and affection for one another, neither one of them seems capable of being honest about this brutal truth that they're going through. And in hiding it, they destroy what they have. And I think that's the beautiful story. And my objection to the cemetery scene is that I think it's a violation of that core story that you were telling. As a spiritual person, because I know that spiritual side is very important to you, and I know you had lost family recently. Randy had lost family recently, and of course, Teresa and I have lost tons of family recently, and we all have that desire for the afterlife. But I just feel like within the context of this story, it didn't fit. And that's my opinion. I don't know what the rest of the team feels.
Yeah, and that is an interesting observation. Like I said, I always thought of them as being two very selfless individuals doing everything they can to keep this pain and grief away from their spouses. And it wasn't even something I really set out to do, the feeling that you have, but it's interesting that happened.
So fascinating about this, though, is I think I probably saw it a bit more like Clark saw it. But now that you're pointing that out to me, I can see both sides so strongly. And I think that that's really fascinating in and of itself. And I don't think you have to have that end scene to still have the selfless side of it. And I kind of love that it is kind of open to interpretation a little bit. Take it how you will.
As all the best sci-fi stories are, like very much open to your own interpretation.
Blade Runner, for sure. I felt the opposite. I thought I was being very selfless because I wanted that goodbye, and then I wanted a longer goodbye, and I'm dying. This is it. I was trying to give her the gift of not going through the pain of losing me. So, and it was tearing me apart. I went through the loss of as if someone had died in my life, like losing her. Like I know I'm dying in the fear of me losing my life, but my biggest loss was losing Annie.
So it's 2 against 2 so far.
Well, I'm not saying I'm against it. I love the ending where it ends in the bed. I'm kind of on the dark side, I guess. But it's a beautiful scene. I mean, the cemetery scene is a beautiful scene. But I that's the Twilight Zone aspect. It's like it ends like a Twilight Zone or like a Tales from the Dark Side. That's what I love.
I think what I like about it is that it kind of asks a question that we have in like a modern world where we are starting to get technology where people are like, oh, well, we can preserve ourselves, we can preserve our brain, and we can preserve our parts of our bodies, and it's a question of should we do that? And so I think that's an interesting way of putting it, where it's like one person is there but isn't there. So I like that aspect of it.
Playing God always has detrimental effects.
Yeah. Did we lose Annie?
Yeah, she keeps coming in and out. I'll bring her back in if she comes back on. So Mark Atkinson asks, what's the difference between this version, Clark, and the version that played at Idlewild?
Idlewild and a couple other festivals had the cemetery scene in the post credits. It had even less Larry doctor scenes, and it didn't have the ashes in the lake scene, which of course was important to me for obvious reasons. Little snips here and there to make it, 15-minute exactly.
Well, I think that's an interesting aspect of filmmaking that a lot of people don't understand, is that we oftentimes shoot a whole lot more than what you end up seeing in a theater. And that process of post-production really is about whittling it down until you find the core elements that are what are essential to telling the story. But as we've discussed with that cemetery scene, so much of that is also up to interpretation. And sometimes you cut stuff out that people would have enjoyed, in the effort of trying to keep it succinct. And it's always a tap dance between, is it too long? Is it too short? And am I telling enough for people to understand what's
even when we were in the middle of filming, we had to cut shots, and that was hard because I know that there were other shots that you wanted, Clark, but we had to
We had a really ambitious production schedule, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah, it was ambitious. And on that note about shortening the film, the version you're seeing here is pretty much the one that played in the San Diego Film Week and stuff like that. It didn't do a whole lot of business here, and it was actually turned down by Oceanside. But then all of a sudden, we got this shorter 15-minute version out there, and places like Sholo Film Festival and what was the other one? Silicon Beach, and then those won some pretty nice big awards. So it really does say something about shortening and streamlining your film.
Brian Davis asked, did Real Randy make the Antibot? I think that's a no, right?
Well, she made the Antibot before she died.
I think that's a definite no, right?
Some people did think that he did make her for some strange reason, which never was the case. She did the same thing earlier than he did, making a clone of herself, and she died years ago before any of this ever happened.
So
the same
interesting
thing.
to see what people hear and don't hear within the context of the stories you tell, right?
Yeah, it is.
It always fascinates me, no matter how succinct you try to be, how clear you try to be, there's still people who only see certain parts of the story you're telling. I always find that fascinating, the things that get missed from one viewing to the next.
And I've only had literally one person tell me that they definitely figured it out ahead of time that she had died and was already a clone throughout the entire movie. One person.
I was reading the script until the end. Oh, what? But yeah, I didn't pick it up.
She's dead.
So tell me a little bit about the production schedule. How many days did you shoot this film in?
4.
2 weekends. Yeah, 2 full weekends.
And it was how many pages?
10, 15, 20?
20. The very first cut of the movie was 30 minutes, so it was at least a 25-minute page script.
Yeah.
We did all the interiors of the house in Jill's house on Saturday. We did the garage on Sunday. The following week we took off. Then we did
Dixon.
Lake Dixon. We went back to the outside of Jill's house and shot the car and all the outside stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then went to the doctor's office. The next day we did
The bedroom.
the bedroom at Clark's, and then we drove over to Poway, from La Jolla to Poway, to shoot the restaurant
And you did the
Yeah.
park stuff.
in the park.
Oh yeah, very very busy
It
shooting
was hot
schedule.
AF.
God, it was hot.
Yeah, you shot in August, right?
I mean, we don't have AC here, and where we shot the scenes here, and
There's no AC at the house. We shot the bedroom scene, right?
We
20
used
bodies in here.
What's that?
we used fans. Remember, because we turned on the fan as soon as the scene was done filming.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a book next to the bed. I remember holding the book, and it was horrible.
What I'm curious, for each of you, what is your favorite moment in the film and why?
I love the clone stuff, but for me, I think it was that restaurant scene with Annie. I felt very connected, both of us. She gave me so much to work with, and I really love that moment. The moment where the kiss wasn't in the script. When I tell her, I just want you to know that no matter what happens, I'll love you and I will always love you. And then she then kissed me, and then I put my hand on her face, and the tears started welling out. They cut right before the tears started flowing, but I thought that moment was, for me, was the best.
Yeah, that would be my second favorite scene. My first favorite scene is when they actually leave each other in the front of the house, and he has to say the tearful goodbye, and she's oblivious, and he's just about to lose it. He can hardly stand to let her go. I think that's a extraordinarily dramatic and powerful scene.
What about any of the rest of you?
For me, making it pretty. So the dining room scene and the garage.
Yeah, from my point of view, the garage scene is the most visually interesting for me. And generally, when I watch stuff, I'm trying to pick it apart and figure out where the mistakes are. So I'm the kind of guy that stops it and reads what's on the screen behind there. and remembering full well that those were all on different loops that would sometimes turn off and pause. So like, Rachel, how many screens were there? Like 6, 7, 8? All of them would start doing different stuff if they didn't loop. And then if it was half where Randy was on this side and the one was on this side, this TV was up same as that one, it got a little crazy.
Yeah.
It was by far the most prepared for the shoot I was that first weekend. Not that I wasn't for the second half, but I put the most effort into planning the shots that I really wanted, like the sliding across with the computers and all the stuff in front, the garage, this kind of circular tracking that we did with the wheelchair. We shot the dining room. I was in a wheelchair. Teresa was pulling me in a wheelchair as we're circling around it. That was by far the most fun and creative, and I thought the most challenged, some of the most challenged shots I've done to date.
How about let's hear from what's Teresa's favorite scene?
My favorite scene?
Yeah.
Well, I would say one of them was it was an outside shot where Randy falls to the ground. I don't think it was in, but one of my favorite scenes. I just remember watching Randy because we had to do it 2 different camera. One was following down, one was down on the ground to catch him fall, and just catch the different moments of when he kind of broke down. That was a fun. I thought that
was that in the driveway, Teresa?
It was in the driveway.
Okay,
yeah.
Fall into frame.
Yeah, fall into frame and stuff. But so I liked that shot. That was one of my favorite scenes. Plus, Randy, I always love it when Randy has to really pull that stuff out.
We like to make Randy cry.
We like to make Randy cry.
I actually asked Clark to cut that one. I was like, it's too much. I felt like too much.
And I did. We did cut it. It's not in these versions anymore.
I just felt
I thought it was too much too, because I thought it was too much too early.
Yeah. I wanted that moment the walk down the stairs was more powerful without the breakdown already.
Yeah.
It just felt like to me, but
yep.
No, I totally agree. And Clark and I had many arguments about what should stay and what should go in post.
I didn't want that. Don't get me wrong. I didn't want that scene in the movie where it was. I liked the shots of it.
Yeah, when we say our favorite scenes, it's shots.
Yeah.
I'll take it from my reel.
Camera crew is all about the image.
It's all about the image for us. So, like for me, shooting that and how that turned out, I really enjoy. I liked that, but I didn't think it belonged in the movie.
I know. Transition shots between scenes that obviously when you cut movies for time, transition shots are usually like the very first thing to go.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of pretty shots that would transition from that didn't make any of the film. But that's the biz. That's what happens.
I know the exact shot you're talking about, kind of dirty handheld.
It was a dirty handheld shot. Yep. Yeah, it was kind of nitty gritty with him, and for the shot itself to be raw because it was such a raw emotional moment for him.
Kind of a Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
And those two were laying on the driveway in August.
Burning.
I sit back and be like, "You guys are doing a good job! Yeah,
you can cook an egg on that driveway. Way to go!"
Yeah.
It's hot there. You want me to hand you the camera? Here you go.
I think eventually, Joe came up with an umbrella and started to shade us because we were melting on the ground. But yeah, there was a lot of fun shots. I always enjoy working with the 2 mics for on crew. I think the 3 of us really get along well, so we kind of.
Except that one time when you yelled at me and I pouted.
Yeah, well, you deserved it. But
over here.
Annie said, "Sorry, guys, she's not talking. She keeps freezing." So
yeah.
Yeah, Annie kept getting booted out, so I think she's given up on trying to come back in. Rachel and Elise, what were your favorite moments in the film?
From a story perspective and acting performance perspective, I just love that scene when Randy's really saying goodbye to Annie, and she's completely oblivious, and each of them played that so well. Just and you're just like, oh, I'm just trying to get to work. And Randy just feeling all this emotion, and I love the contrast of that. And then this is like a really, really minor thing, but I think my favorite shots in the film are in the garage when the camera's just panning and there's like, you see the little computer screens and then Randy goes behind it. I just, I don't know, it's like really subtle little thing. I just think it's a beautiful shot.
Yeah, he's kind of bent over and he kind of comes up into frame. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, one of the things we did real quick, like in the garage, just to get to a lot of those shots, we had 3 cameras going a lot. We had a camera on a slider, we had a camera on sticks to always get a solid, and then we usually had a handheld somewhere. I was usually hiding all over the place in a handheld in the garage. So to get a lot of these interesting shots, we, especially in the garage, we had all 3 cameras going at once in this tiny little space and try to not be in each other's shots.
Not all that effort really paid off, though, because I think of all the places that you need the interesting kind of quirky shots, it's in that garage. So it looked great, guys.
Yeah.
But Clark, I think, Clark, you said that you didn't realize how much footage you got from the garage.
Yeah, I had so much footage from all the different cameras to edit from.
We'll talk about that aspect of making the movie in just a second. I want to get Annalise's favorite moment in the movie.
I would say that the most beautiful scene, I like the candlelit dinner. I know it's like a super minor thing, but I like the wine bottle and how it has like the wine streaks on the label and how it's already been opened and like they've been drinking wine. Like it all makes sense. I liked that, and then I obviously I like the ending. I like that when initially in my mind the whole time I'm like, wow, like she's so robotic, and then and then the end when you're like, oh my goodness.
She did a great job with that.
Yeah.
Watching, but I know we talked about it, and she's like, how do I do this and not like overdo it and not indicate, that you're. It's hard.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Yeah, she never did. She never did like give it away. I was just it was like a subtle thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think my favorite scene is that candlelit dinner because it's the scene that takes you off the scent of what she is, because it is romantic and you do feel that connection between the two of them and between Mikey's cinematography and the set design in that shot. And then the way I emphasize things with the candlelight really focused it down in the color correction to make it feel much darker and warmer and rich an experience. And I think it's a tiny, tiny scene and it doesn't seem important, but I think it's vital because it was one of the scenes Clark talked about cutting when he was talking about shortening the film down. I said, you can't cut that scene. It's what makes everybody feel like these two people belong together.
Yeah, I put that back in the cut pretty darn fast. But yeah, Annie was, she came to me and she was a little concerned that her performance was maybe a little too rigid or stiff or unrealistic, I guess, in some way. But, I didn't think that was the case. I think, she did it the way it should be done. And when you see the movie again, you find out that she has a reason to be
there's a beautiful, casual, mutual affection you feel between the two of them in those shots around that candlelit dinner that isn't overly intimate. It just feels so relaxed that I think we fill in the gaps of their history right away, very early in the film with that scene. And then she can be as robotic as she wants the rest of the time. We've already established her as being warm.
And that's the thing is the whole point is that you don't notice until you don't realize that it was just a little bit robotic until the end.
Yeah.
Not like I wasn't thinking that when watching it.
Right.
I think that makes it a good movie to want to go watch again.
And I think that's what great sci-fi is it's stuff that's rewatchable because every time you watch it, you find something else to learn, something else to glean out of it because there's so much layering in most sci-fi, story-wise and visually. It's sci-fi is my favorite genre of film for a lot of those reasons.
Yeah, and I didn't want to make this type of film where it focuses on the gadgets and all the electronic stuff that makes the clone happen. It's more of a relationship drama for me, and that's why there's so many scenes of them just talking casually at restaurant and whatnot, and just
But
conversing to know them
that
as
sci-fi
characters.
isn't about the science side of it. It's about the
Yep.
humanity side within the context of a science fiction story. And
There
I
you
think you hit the nail on the head with it on this one. So on the production side of things, Clark, I know you had your heart set on a lot of oneers, which would have made your post-production a different experience because you would have not had a lot of editing options. I know Mike Peterson, Michael Shane, and Teresa, and myself, we pushed real hard for you to shoot multicam and shoot in a way that you'd never shot before. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience for you and how you think it worked out?
Yeah, I had designed some interesting oneers. I had made these animatics in Flash and put them together that way to be oneers, and it would have worked if we had more time and prepared more. Not prepared, but rehearsed it a little bit better, and really fine-tuned it a lot. That would have taken a long time. But as far as the garage stuff goes, I didn't really design any oneers to speak of. I was perfectly thrilled and happy with having 3 cameras going to capture all of Randy's angles, and of course it's the master split screen angle. But for the most part, I did get the oneers I did want. When she comes down the stairs and we come over to Randy with the blood in the napkin, and when she comes home from work and they talk a minute by the refrigerator there in the kitchen, those I got to do, and those were pretty much what I had in mind. And so those oneers, they worked.
Yeah, they're a little modified for what we had with the space available, and also lensing and stuff like that. But yeah, they're in there here and there.
And in the scenes where you had the multicams, how did the editing get affected for you by having the multicam shots? Did you find that more difficult to deal with because you had so much footage, or did you find that liberating to have a lot of things to choose from?
It was definitely liberating because I didn't want these split screen shots to call a bunch of attention to themselves. Like, look how cool we are. We're doing a split screen with one actor, and I didn't want to showcase it that way. I was very happy to just cut close up of the clone, close up of Randy, and just make it. I mean, I tried to edit it in such a way that it really was 2 actors in a scene. We did, however, avoid doing any kind of over the shoulder type shots, and though I had thought about it, I'm glad we didn't do it that way because I actually don't like it when I see an actor playing a dual role, and I'm always looking at the other the stand-in's ear and his hair and to see if his shirt's the same, and it always takes me right out of the movie, the scene that I'm watching. So I'm glad we didn't do any of those types of shots.
It was an interesting process because the 3 of us, which I guess triplet, Kevin Burke called us triplets. The triplets are used to the multi-camera thing, so it was something we were decent at and we can do and execute. But it was interesting, especially on the first 2 days of someone like Kevin Burke, who was the AD, trying to keep us on schedule and was worried that we weren't on schedule. And I just had to keep assuring him that we were, and we'd be fine, to just don't worry about it, because the concept, he hadn't worked on a multi-camera shoot either. And so the concept that we would get multiple shots that were needed in one go, it took a little bit for him to grasp. Eventually he was like, we kept ending on time for the schedule of when we needed things to be done and have all the shots done. And he was like, wow, this is a whole different ballgame to try to shoot this way. I know it's a little long waiting for the actors to get, it takes a little longer for the crew to set, but then the actors don't have to do as many takes. So they can, usually get through, and you can get your best takes from actors within 2 to 5 takes usually. But if they have to do it over and over again, 2 to 5 takes for every different angle you want, that's where you start to have a lot of the issues and the problems and stuff. For everybody, we all screw up. The the crew and the acting. So I think the multi-camera was very helpful, especially for Randy when he had to do a lot of emotional and movement stuff. I think it was helpful for him.
You know what the hardest one was for me? The clone monologue, where it was like, because I couldn't stutter, or like
you had a lot of scientific dialogue.
Yeah, you couldn't pause like Shatner does when he forgets a line. It was like, rule number one, you cannot. Rule number one, you cannot. I don't even know what it was, but it took me forever to get through that because I kept stumbling. And I would just start over until I got through it.
But yeah, I mean, if you imagine if we didn't do multi-cameras on that scene, you would have had to have done that a lot more times to try to get through. And since you were already struggling with it to begin with, that's when those moments, multi-camera is super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to sound like a computer, like Siri, and get it all the way through. Finally got it.
It was really hot in there.
Yeah, that was part of it too.
This was our first time working with Kevin, and it was awesome. He is a great AD.
Oh yeah,
and it's really important to have a good AD on your set. It makes things go so much more smoothly.
Yeah, Kevin is amazing as a AD.
He's a drill sergeant, and he's got these meticulous spreadsheets he brings, and he goes over everything to the minute. I mean, he gauges how long a scene's going to take down to the minute.
Yeah, he and I worked really closely together on his little spreadsheets so I could show him what stuff we'd already done and where we were in his time frame. So
yeah. So as we're wrapping up here, IntelleXual University is all about people learning from our experiences, and it's great that we talk about the things we're very happy with. Final question, and we can kind of keep it limited to Clark if you guys want, but what is the biggest lesson you learned in this that you're going to take forward into the next project? Something that you didn't do as well as you would have liked, and that's going to change how you do things going forward.
Well, let's see. Maybe you should have asked me that ahead of time so I could come up with something. I would say that. I mean, the only thing I really kind of regret is that we didn't get these oneers accomplished in the doctor scenes. I had really wanted these to be a oneer. It came out fine. It's fine like it is, of course, in hindsight. I really think that if we had planned it, better, met more ahead of time, I would suggest meet with your DP more than we did on this and make time for I mean, if you really want to have a scene like this, it's a very complicated oneer with very specific camera moves and actor blocking. You have to get in there ahead of time. You can't just
I know, Clark, when I work with the team, I try to bring them out to the locations a couple weeks before we shoot so that they can walk it, they can space it out. We can have those conversations ahead of time on what might not be capable. So we're not arguing about it on the day. It's really, really helpful to have your production team involved in pre-production.
Yeah, I think one of the issues with that was that we tried scheduling it for a later time or a later date. And then it was that the date was pushed forward because that's when everyone was available. And then I think we just had some timing issues, not having enough time to prepare in all the ways that we could have.
Right.
Not only, about the camera department on something like that, but the actors as well. I mean, it would have been nice if we had more time with Randy and Larry to block it better, tighten up the pacing, and really kind of, act for the camera and get the whole thing to work.
Oneers are essential.
Oneers are essential for that, yeah.
On top of what they're doing, because you don't have anything to cut to.
Yeah, I may have overreached a little. That was an ambitious shot.
What's that, Randy?
I was going to say, Larry's like Sam Elliott. He don't do slow. I mean, he doesn't do fast.
Nope.
He's the earth. He's very,
Love working with Larry Poole. He's
amazing.
He's such an incredible guy, and always gives you a strong performance. But Larry has a very distinct idea on how he's going to deliver a performance, and you got to trust him, as you do with any other actor, to to bring his A game and what he's doing, and he always does, which, you know.
Oh yeah. It's
Well,
great.
and as a crew too, you have to recognize the actors that you are working with too, and what their abilities are. And sometimes we have to adjust what we had in our mind too, to go along with what the actual flow of what the actors are presenting and what they actually can give for what is given to them. So even on the spot, we had, I mean, like I said, Mike said it, you know, the triplets, we did a whole weekend of rehearsing and practicing certain things. And we had some ideas on shots, and we adjusted on site too, based off of their speed and what could actually be done and what movement could actually happen, you know. And that's the nature of filmmaking though, is you have, even though you might have it in your head, 9 10 out of 10 you have to adjust on set.
Well, always somebody's always like, I want 100%. We're like, we can do 60. We can do 60 today. We can do 60. 70 maybe, but definitely not 100. We can't fly that in. It's not going to happen.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today, and it was fun to watch the movie with everybody. I've never made it to any of the public screenings, so nice to have that chance with you guys today. Annalise, thank you for joining us all the way from Hawaii.
Wow.
Bye.
Well, I want to thank you for having us on your show and having our movie on your show and having me on your show. I've been a fan of your podcast for a long time, and I've never gotten to be on it, so I'm really thrilled to be on this side of the coin for a change. And I'm
glad we could
really
do it. And you know, I hope if you've joined this episode of IntelleXual University and you haven't seen the movie yet, it is still available at the IntelleXual Entertainment Facebook page and at the YouTube page. So make sure you go check it out. It's worth your watch, and you'll have a lot of insight going into it already. So again, thank you all very much, and thank you to our viewers. It's been a great IntelleXual University, and we will hopefully see you guys all again in real life and make another movie together, like hopefully sometime soon. Probably not till 2021, but that's not that far off now, right?
Start playing now.
We just got to plan something in quarantine for 14 days ahead of time, and just, you know.
This is the worst.
That's an idea.
Keep an eye out. Keep an eye out for me.
We get a cabin in Idlewild for.
We do know a cabin in Idlewild.
We do know a guy, don't we?
That could
We know a guy who, yeah, we'll have to figure that one out.
we didn't get a chance to talk about it at all, but everyone in this group has come back together again since this to create a feature film called Mystery Highway, which we are going to try to get back into pretty soon, despite the virus
Mike
issues.
is going to help me with some editing here in the next couple of weeks.
Yep. If we're doing plugs, I'm going to do a quick plug. Keep an eye out in October and November for I have a role in David Fincher's new movie, Mank. Play the maitre d' with Gary Oldman, and United States versus Billie Holiday, Lee Daniels' new movie. Senator Joseph McCarthy. Looking for some red carpet screenings, but probably going to go right to
video on demand, right?
Yeah.
And let's make sure we say thank you to Annie Willett Thomas. She joined us for a little while, but you know she was having internet issues and couldn't stay on with us. But it's always good to have her on, and hopefully we can get her back on sometime down the road, maybe just on the podcast in general. So, guys, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week, and we will see you all again on IntelleXual University. Till next time. Bye.
Good to see you guys.
Bye.